With Oleksandr Usyk beating Tyson Fury a second time for the heavyweight crown, it's become clear that Usyk is the best active heavyweight in the game right now. But how well does he stack up against the all-time greats? Is Usyk the greatest boxer of all time? In this video, I'll be giving you all the information you need to know about Usyk, from his amateur career all the way up to his recent achievements, so that you can decide for yourself where Usyk belongs in the history books. Oleksandr Usyk was born in Ukraine on the 17th of January 1987. His mum worked in construction whilst his dad was in the military. He's the eldest sibling in the family and would play football until the age of 15. He would switch over to boxing and compete as an amateur, fighting internationally for the first time in 2006 at the European Championships, where he won his first 3 matches but would lose to Matvey Korobov in the semi-final. After the loss, it was clear that he was too weak at the weight and would move up to light heavyweight. After winning the Stranger Cup in 2008, he moved up one last time to replace Denis Poyatska at the Olympic Games but would lose to Clement Russo in the quarterfinal. He dropped down to light heavyweight one last time to win gold at the 2008 European Championships before moving back up again to heavyweight to compete in the 2011 Amateur Boxing Championships. There he beat Artur Beterbiev and Timur Mammadov to win the heavyweight title, which allowed him to qualify for the 2012 Summer Olympics. At the 2012 Olympic Games in London, he would win a gold medal beating out Artur Beterbiev, Tavel Pulev and Clement Russo. He would retire from amateur boxing with a record of 335 wins and 15 losses. Right before turning professional, he competed one last time in the World Series of Boxing as part of Team Ukraine. He had 6 bouts with them, winning them all with 2 by knockout. Usyk would turn pro in 2013 at age 26 and sign a promotional deal with the Klitschko brothers under K2 Promotions. He would win his first 4 fights, stopping all 4 opponents before being moved quickly to fight for his first title against Daniel Brewer. He would beat the South African with a 7th round stoppage to win the interim WBO Intercontinental Cruiserweight title. By 2016, he had defended this title 4 more times, with all 9 of his fights coming by way of knockout. This would put him in the WBO's #1 position and set the stage for his first world title fight. In September 2016, he would face undefeated Polish boxer Krzysztof Glowacki for his WBO Cruiserweight title. Usyk would dominate the fight using slick footwork, good hand speed and a great jab which closed Glowacki's eye early into the fight. He would take the decision on all 3 judges' cards and would become a world champion after just 10 fights. He would defend this title twice against Tabiso Mchunu and Michael Hunter in the States before having a shot at glory by entering the World Boxing Super Series. Now, to people that don't know what the World Boxing Super Series is, it's basically the greatest boxing tournament of all time. It's an 8-man bracket style tournament which featured strong cruiserweight world champions like Marius Bradis, Murat Gasiev, Junior Dorticos, Marco Huck and Krzysztof Wlodarczyk. The winner of the tournament would receive a grand money prize as well as the Muhammad Ali trophy. Before the tournament could begin, matchmaking needed to be decided, and the tournament organisers decided the best way to do this would be to hold a draft gala. There, Usyk would get first pick and would choose former WBO champion Marco Huck as his opponent. You would think that because Usyk had first pick, he must have picked the easiest fight, but Marco Huck is currently the joint longest reigning cruiserweight world champion with Johnny Nelson. Both have made 13 consecutive successful defenses. The fight would take place in Huck's hometown, and on fight night, Usyk would put on a masterclass, using his footwork and combination punching to cruise to a knockout win. The fight wasn't even close, with Usyk constantly taunting Huck throughout the fight, and the referee stepped in to stop the fight in the 10th round. Usyk would progress through to get to the semi-final stage to face Marius Bradis. Similar to Huck, Bradis was also a monster. He's a 3-time cruiserweight world champion who served as a police officer in Latvia, and at the time was the WBC world champion, coming off a win against Mike Perez earlier in the tournament. In a similar fashion to previous fights, Usyk would have to travel to Bradis' hometown to fight him at Riga. Usyk managed to get the decision in a close fight by using a high work rate and controlling the fight with his jab. Bradis was tough, taking the fight to Usyk and absorbing his best punches, but Usyk became busier as the fight went on and managed to win most of the later rounds. He would go on to say that Bradis was the hardest fight of his life. After winning against Bradis, Usyk would move on to the final of the tournament against Murat Gasiev. The fight was looking like it would take place in Saudi Arabia, but with Gasiev stopping Junior Dorticos, the Secretary General of the Russian Boxing Federation, Umar Kremlev, would push forward to outbid the Saudis to have the fight take place in Russia. Kremlev would later announce that the fight would take place at the Olympic Stadium in Moscow. Gasv, who goes by the nickname Iron, was a unified champion at the time, known for his fierce pressure fighting style, and Usyk would adapt to this by taking control of the fight with his jab early on and not letting Gasv in. This was probably the best version of Usyk we've ever seen, because Gasv didn't land a solid punch until the end of round 2. Usyk completely schooled the unified champion to win unanimously. After this fight, Muhammad Ali's widow, Lonnie Ali, presented Usyk with the trophy, marking him as the first ever 4-belt undisputed cruiserweight champion. After the fight, he would call out Tony Bellu, who at the time was still a solid cruiserweight, coming off 2 back-to-back wins against David Haye, as well as a 10-fight win streak. The fight itself wasn't close. Bellu had his moments, but as the fight went on, he was starting to get tired, and the referee would stop the fight in the 10th round. Following this fight, Tony Bellu would retire from boxing. Following his victory over Tony Bellu, Usyk would move up to heavyweight, and Eddie Hearn would move him to face Tyrone Spong. This fight would be cancelled due to Spong testing positive for a banned substance, so Chaz Witherspoon was called in on short notice. Witherspoon was in no condition to fight and would end up quitting after the 7th round. He would then move on to face former world title challenger Derek Chisora, and on the night, Usyk's footwork and stamina wore Chisora down to win on all 3 scorecards. Chisora simply couldn't keep up with Usyk, and this should have been the warning signs for the rest of the division. In his post-fight interview, Usyk would state that he was coming for Anthony Joshua. Whilst all of this was happening, Fury and Joshua were in talks to fight, but with Usyk becoming the #1 challenger, the WBO had stated that Joshua needed to come to an agreement with Fury or he would need to face Usyk. The Fury-Joshua teams failed to reach an agreement, and so Joshua would move on to Usyk. Everybody doubted that Usyk would have the size or power to beat Joshua, but Usyk produced an upset, outboxing Joshua and rocking him multiple times over 12 rounds. He would claim a unanimous decision victory, and soon after, Joshua's team activated the rematch clause in their contract. The rematch was set to take place in Saudi Arabia and marked the first defense of Usyk's heavyweight titles. Joshua had a better game plan this time, attacking to the body and being more aggressive, but he became tired later on and almost got stopped in the 12th. He would end up experiencing an ego death in his post-fight interview, having one of the most unusual post-fight interviews of all time. Following his victories over Anthony Joshua, Usyk would take on the WBA champion at the time, Daniel Dubois, in Poland. The fight had some controversial moments, like Dubois landing a low blow, giving Usyk 5 minutes to recover, but Usyk was in control for most of the fight and managed to put him down once in the 8th before stopping him in the 9th. A few months later, it was announced that Usyk would face the WBC champion Tyson Fury for the undisputed heavyweight title in Riyadh, with the total purse being reported to be $150 million. Fury would take 70% of the purse, but Usyk managed to pull off the win by split decision, becoming the first undisputed heavyweight champion in the 4-belt era and the first undisputed champion in 24 years. His jab and constant pressure allowed him to get past Fury's early success to hurt him later on in the fight, almost stopping him in the 9th before the referee saved Fury. Fury's team would go for the rematch, and although I think he was having a bit more success this time around, Usyk still proved too much for him, and Usyk would win by unanimous decision. So now that we've taken a look at his history, it leaves us with one question: what makes him so good? In the heavyweight division, usually the bigger man is at an advantage. The bigger you are, the harder you hit. There's been a few small heavyweights who are skilled enough to use their smaller size to their advantage, such as Mike Tyson, who used the peekaboo style to slip punches and come back with counters. Usyk is able to have similar success with his stature by using an Eastern European style that uses a lot of slips and angles with high level footwork. Eastern European boxers also tend to have a high work rate in order to score as many points as possible, whilst limiting how successful their opponents can be. The style was developed and used by the Eastern Europeans in order to have success in the amateurs. It's hard for this style to work in the pros because this level of activity can be hard to maintain over multiple rounds, but Usyk is able to get around this weakness by using this style in bursts to avoid emptying his tank. Usyk also incorporates lots of slips to avoid punches coming from taller fighters before getting in on the inside and letting his hands go. He lacks power because of his small stature at this weight, but he doesn't need power. His aim isn't to knock you out with one shot. He's a volume puncher that's drowning you in pressure. He's prepared to outbox you for 12 rounds and get the decision if that's what it takes. He also has a very tough high guard, which gives him time to recover whenever he wants to take his foot off the gas. And although people may see this as the time to strike, his high guard is as good as his open guard. Not only is he one of the most skilled boxers on the planet right now, he also has the conditioning to match. He trains year round and stays in perfect shape, which is a massive advantage over fighters who get out of shape after a fight, then spend the first few weeks of camp taking the weight off. Usyk doesn't need to worry about this and and can get straight to business once a fight is announced. His conditioning is always a deciding factor in his fights because he may need to push the pace to win crucial rounds, and so far he hasn't failed at doing this. Over the course of his stellar career, he's racked up impressive wins in both the cruiserweight and heavyweight division, and he's not even done yet. How good do you guys think Usyk is, and is he the best in the game right now? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.